video, you can do that too. And yeah, I'm gonna go over, I have like a couple, if your computer screen isn't working, there's a way to have it call in instead or have it call you. That might help things be easier. And there's a chat box too, it sounds like Allison found. But all right, it's about 12 o'clock, so we'll get going. My name is Kyle. I work for the New Jersey Water Supply Authority, together with the Watershed Institute and Raritan Headwaters. We overview the River Friendly Certification Program Partnership. I think Lauren's going to give a little introduction on that later, but I just wanted to show again, thank you for coming today. This is, today we have our New Jersey Wildlife webinar, all about the Eastern Bluebird, which Lauren will speak on, and then Coexisting with Coyotes, where we have Tom Shepphard from Hunterdon County Parks. Next week, we're going to have another webinar. We'll have Dr. Mike Van Cleef from the New Jersey Invasive Species Strike Team. We're going to talk a lot about how to manage as well as identify terrestrial invasives in your landscape. And then Nick Zemlichenko from New Jersey Water Supply Authority, who does a lot of our inventorying of watershed protected lands, is going to look at backyard tree ID, if that helps you while you're walking around your neighborhood during this time, as well as dangers of spotter and lanternfly as that comes into our area, emerald ash borer, and looking for their signs. We also have another one coming up in, this is March 6th. Sorry. Save a Tree. Robert Chin from Save a Tree will be talking about reducing synthetic herbicide use and pesticide use on your lawn, doing organic lawning, and looking at irrigation needs. And then we'll also have a speaker from Jersey Friendly Yards to show how to use their database on finding native plants, beautifying your property, and reducing your environmental impact. If you're just joining us, if you have any problems, I just wanted to show now, there is a way to have it called audio problem. Click on these three little dots. If you go to the bottom, you can click audio connection, and then you'll prompt it to call in or have it call you. Also, by checking the bottom, oh, I don't know where it went, but there's a little text bubble, and then you can chat on the side. We're using that for questions, and then we'll have questions at the end of each speaker, or I might interject with questions. List them there. That'll help things run smoothly. And afterwards, this is the River Friendly websites, njriverfriendly.org. If you click on resources, we just put up our video from last week, as well as our resources from last week's webinar, which was rain barrels, rain gardens, and downspout planters. And that's where the video from today's webinar will be, and resources from today as well. It'll probably take until about Friday to get the video up there, but just in case you have to drop out and would like to catch up later. But with that, I'm going to give it to Lauren, and she's going to start.
Okay, hey everybody. Just bear with me while I bring up. Okay. All right. So just a reminder, if you're just joining us now, please mute your microphone. We have a lot of people joining in, so that'll eliminate some of the background noise that we'll be hearing. So again, my name is Lauren Theis. I am the Director of Education at Raritan Headwaters. We are a nonprofit member-supported organization working to protect the water in our rivers, our streams, and our homes. So I encourage you to check out our website, raritanheadwaters.org. We have some great resources up there for distance learning, as well as for activities that you can do in your backyard, or simply looking out your window or in your own home to engage with the watershed and with the nature that surrounds your home. can go ahead and do that after our webinar is over. So just a little bit more about the River Friendly program, which I mentioned. Raritan Headwaters is part of the partnership that makes it river friendly, which also includes the Water Supply Authority and the Watershed Institute. The River Friendly program is a free certification program that works to educate and encourage folks to take stormwater management practices at home as well as at their business or schools into their own hands and to engage in projects that they can do on the land as well as to learn about how they can make a positive impact. There is a free program for residents, so I really encourage everybody to go to njriverfriendly.org, take this super simple survey, see if you're river friendly, and you will get a really cool river friendly resident sign to put in your front yard, which will help to encourage your neighbors and the people around you to hopefully follow suit and start to make a positive impact on our local environment and the watershed. So with that, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about the Eastern Bluebird, one of my favorite birds. Scientific name is Syalia syalis, and they are a super cute little bird. I'm really excited to share this with you. Normally I do this presentation paired with a Bluebird box, nest box workshop where we actually make our own nest boxes, but I'll share with you in the presentation how you can easily make a nest box at home and some places that you can purchase one. So just some of the basics about the, oops, sorry, can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Sorry, I just saw someone said that they couldn't hear me and I didn't want to keep going if they could. Okay. So the size and shape, they are beautiful bird. Right around this time, they're starting to get their bright blue coloration, which is pretty obvious. They also stand up really straight, very alert, big round head, large eyes, a short and straight bill, which allows them to eat the insects, which is their main food source. A plump body, short legs, long wings, and a short tail, and they are considered a small thrush. So somewhere in between a sparrow and a robin. Let's see if I can get this song to work. If I can't get the sound to go, I will send a clip to you all via email because I think that anyone that's a birder will know that it's really important to hear the sound. There it goes. Okay, so you might hear the song first, which is why, again, it's important to know what this bird sounds like, and then you can kind of start looking around and see if you can find it, but the audio is really important. Okay. So coloration, they're blue, really bright blue. Especially the males at this time of year, super, super bright blue, rusty coloration on their breast, kind of a white tummy. But blue in most types of birds is really dependent on the lighting. So from a distance, it might look a little bit more grayish, like the female looks year round. The photo on the right shows the female. She just has some of those little tinges of blue, but otherwise a little bit more subdued in color. And you'll find that in the winter, the males look very much like the females. Their coloration sort of is a bit more subdued in the winter months. A little bit about their behavior. You will see them perching on wires or fence posts overlooking open fields. They do this kind of fluttering thing. They'll survey the ground, scanning for prey, and then they'll flutter down to the ground where they find some sort of a cricket or a caterpillar or some other insect. They also feed on berries in the winter. They do typically migrate. However, we've been seeing more of them in the winter sticking around, presumably because of changing weather patterns and or the availability of food. So you might see more of these in the winter than we're typically used to. They can actually see their tiny prey from 60 feet away, which is pretty incredible. And generally speaking, they are cavity dwellers. They'll use nest boxes, which I'll speak a little bit about, but they really love old woodpecker holes, especially in dead oak trees or pine trees. So here's a perfect bluebird habitat, nice big open meadow surrounded by large trees. If this nest box wasn't here, they might opt to nest in some of the cavities made in some of those big old trees there. Plenty of insect availability for food, no pesticide use here, and just basically open meadow. We often find them now in suburban parks or golf courses, but primarily what their original habitat was probably disturbed savanna that underwent frequent wildfires, or forest openings, or beaver ponds, etc. Areas that were frequently disturbed by natural means and that now are disturbed because of humans who are creating some good habitat for them. Here's an image showing their range. Once again, you'll see teeny tiny there is New Jersey, which does show that they are here year-round, which is great. We can enjoy them even through the winter months. We do encourage folks to install nest boxes if they have the appropriate habitat. This is because while they are not a threatened or endangered species yet, they are undergoing threat of habitat loss. This is because we humans really love to clean up our landscape. So we don't often leave the dead and decaying trees where they love to nest. Our fences have even changed. We used to a lot of wooden fences where they would nest in some of the cavities of those old post and rail fences. And now that we're opting more for metal or not natural materials for our fences, their habitat is going down. They've also been competing with some non-native species such as the European starling or the house sparrow, which these nesting cavities are really a hot commodity for a lot of different birds. And so the bluebirds are suffering in that way. So the more that we can encourage bluebird populations by way of installing nesting sites and or leaving the natural habitat as it is, the more we can encourage their population to be sustainable and to keep growing. So nest box design. A good bluebird box is well ventilated, meaning that it has some holes throughout. I have a picture on the next slide that'll show that. Drainage holes. Cedar and redwood are ideal. We don't recommend using treated lumber at all. A lot of people like to paint their bluebird box. You can do that as long as it's a light color. And never install a perch. The bluebirds don't need a perch, and this will actually encourage some of the more aggressive species such as house sparrows to come and pester the bluebirds. So don't install a perch. And they actually have a particular size of entrance hole. 1.5 inches is pretty standard. But I read recently a study that they actually will tolerate a bit of a smaller, more snug nest box with a slightly larger hole, so up to 1.75 inches. So here is our ideal nest box design. You'll see that there are ventilation holes, just a little notch taken out of that sidewall. Use non-treated lumber. There's no perch. We do install a predator guard, which I'll talk a little bit more on another slide, and that is to prevent some of the, again, more aggressive species from widening that hole. And easy monitoring is really key. I'm going to also talk a little bit about. So here is a pretty simple nest box design. I'll send this out to the group after the presentation is over. You just need a 1x6. You can just cut it into all those pieces if you have access to tools at home, and pretty easily create an Eastern Bluebird nest box. And the predator guards that I mentioned, you can see this picture on the right shows where another creature has tried to widen that hole. So by adding that extra barrier, we can keep the entrance hole to be how the bluebirds prefer it and to stop those larger creatures like perhaps a starling from getting in. You can also see down there on the left that there are a number of different predator guards that you can install. The one I have at home is a bit of PVC pipe, which allows deters any creature from climbing up the pole. You can also use a stovepipe or a sheet metal guard. This helps stop, snakes, raccoons, potentially cats from getting to it. This is also why we don't recommend installing a bluebird box on a fence or attached to a building, because that will help some of the predators access the boxes. But we have, I want to say, over 30 bluebird boxes at Fairview Farm Wildlife Preserve, which is where Raritan Headwaters headquarters is located. And we have never seen any predator, knock on wood, get into our bird boxes. And that's because we have these predator guards installed, and we also do frequent monitoring. So when you've purchased or built your bluebird box, you're going to want to choose a location. Hopefully, if you have a nice big backyard, you can find a good spot for your bluebird box. You want to avoid heavily brushy and wooded areas. You'd preferably put it in some kind of an open meadow or in a slightly larger expansive yard if you have it. If you're seeing that tree swallows are using the bluebirds or other native species, we do allow native species to use the boxes even if they're not bluebirds. What you can do is actually pair the boxes. So you can have 2 bluebird boxes on the same pole, and the tree swallows will defend both boxes against other tree swallows, but will allow the Eastern Bluebird to use that second box. So they kind of work well together in that way. Watching the tree swallows nest is really cool too. Obviously, we recommend avoid using any sort of pesticides in this area, especially because these creatures need to eat the insects. So we don't want to encourage those chemicals to go up the food chain. Having a shrub within 100 feet of the box is great, because when the fledglings are ready to start practicing their flying and ready to leave the box, that gives them kind of a landing pad that's close range within the box. Nothing too tall that would encourage a predatory raptor to perch in. And then finally, 2 more things. Face the box away from prevailing winds. Facing south is best. And you're going to want the entrance hole about 5 feet above the ground, although I have read that they will nest as high as 50 feet up in a tree. So they might not be super particular about that aspect. Okay, so you ideally would have your nest box installed already. However, bluebirds will make multiple nests throughout the nesting season, and they will often change their preferences halfway through. So I say it's really never too late. You can stick a box up at any time of year, and even if they've already started a nest, if they've decided that that location is not ideal, or if some other creature has kicked them out of that spot, they might choose to go to your box. It's been found that mostly older bluebirds prefer the nest boxes. The younger bluebirds tend to nest in the more natural settings. So just kind of an interesting tidbit there. I'm not too sure how to determine how old a bluebird is unless you've gone through the process of tagging. Okay. So what to expect when you're expecting bluebirds. Here is an approximate timetable. They take 1 to 6 days to build the nest. They lay the eggs over 5 to 7 days, and then the eggs are incubated for 12 to 14 days. And the babies grow and finally fledge between the 18 and 21 day mark for a total of 36 to 48 days per brood. And we've seen that bluebirds most often have 2 broods per year, occasionally 3 broods. So once again, if they get started in, around this time of year, you do have a bit of an opportunity to still set up a box and have some success. Cute picture of some little fledglings there. So when the male is choosing his nesting site and trying to attract a female, he will often bring a bit of nesting material and go in and out of either the nest box hole or the woodpecker hole, whatever he's chosen, in an effort to entice the female. But then the female is the one that primarily builds the nest, and she will often use pine needles and bits of grass, and they make a really delicate, neat little cup. So you can see over here on the right is the female incubating some eggs. And then in the lower left, there are some of the babies that look like they're just about ready to fledge. It's been shown that in my experience, bluebirds are pacifists. They don't really like to interact with other bird species. If another bird shows an interest in a nest box, what I've seen is that the bluebirds will choose another nesting site. However, I have read reports of male bluebirds defending their nesting sites against even some of the more aggressive birds like house sparrows. So it depends on their personality, I guess. Here's just a sample schedule. I wrote there arrive in New Jersey. That was, if they are migrating, but it seems that they're here all year. So once you start to see them with their bright blue color, and then they'll start to show interest in the nesting sites. And you can see that they potentially will be nesting through the middle of August. We encourage, if you are going to install a nest box at home, you should definitely be monitoring that nest box. For a number of reasons, if you want success of your nest box and you don't see any activity within the first week or so, you might want to move your nest box, try a different site. Oftentimes, as soon as you install a nest box, if it's in the right spot, you'll start to see some activity. So that gives you an indication you might want to adjust where your nest box is. It gives you a chance to deter predators, especially non-native species. We do recommend allowing native species to use the nest boxes, but if you find that you have a starling or a house sparrow that is interested in your nest box, we recommend either taking it down or removing the nest. And with frequent monitoring, you can remove the nest without having any eggs in the nest, and then you don't have to feel quite so guilty about doing it. So the more you can monitor, the better. There are a number of citizen scientist opportunities if you do choose to install a nest box. Nest Watch through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology has a great website where you can input your data as far as when the birds are nesting, how many eggs you're seeing, etc. And the North American Bluebird Society also compiles some information. So you have an opportunity to contribute to some larger scientific projects. When you're monitoring, you'll want to do it about once a week. You'll want to stop when the chicks get close to fledging. And this is because you don't want to encourage them to fledge prematurely. So when you're monitoring your box, you're going to approach very slowly, knock on the box so that way they have a chance to flee, not in your face, and kind of gives them a warning, that a heads up that you're there. Open the box slowly. You want to limit your time looking at them, take a couple of pictures if you like, then close it, walk away, and then take your notes. The bluebirds will often perch somewhere and just watch you and hope that you're not eating their eggs or babies. But if you have a tree swallow pair, they might swoop in at you. I won't say never, but I have never been actually hit by a tree swallow. They just kind of swoop above your head and hope to intimidate you. So it's a little scary at first, but it's actually good that they're defending their nest. You don't want to monitor when it's raining, and you don't want to handle the eggs or the nestlings, especially chickadee eggs are super fragile, and the oil from your hands can actually inhibit them from hatching. So don't touch. Here's a sample data sheet. I don't know if anyone's going to be installing 12 bluebird boxes at home, but this was in 2012 when our bluebird boxes at Fairview Farm were up to 12 in count. So you'll see that the data that we're gathering here is there a nest? What species is present? You can watch just who's coming and going from the nest to determine the species, the number of eggs, the number of live chicks, and if any chicks have died. I'll pass that around to everybody too. So here are some other common visitors to bluebird nest boxes. We're totally okay if a tree swallow, a nuthatch, a house wren use the box, but a house sparrow will kick them out of there. And here's a comparison of some of the different eggs. I have heard of some of the larger creatures like robins using the nest boxes. I would presume that they would prefer a house with a slightly larger hole. But they're similar to an Eastern Bluebird egg, but just a bit bigger. You can actually recognize what species is using the nest based on using the nest box based on what the nest is composed of. Like I said, woven grass, pine needles can be used. And you can see here on the right are cutaway versions of what the nest looks like. So the house sparrow nest is a little bit unkempt, a little bit sloppier than our bluebird. Their house sparrow is also much taller. The bluebird has a nest that's much lower in the box. I'm not one to antagonize species, but I have seen house sparrows do some pretty brutal things. So when I can, they're native to Europe, they're not from here. So when I have the opportunity, I try not to encourage them to nest in my backyard. Here's another example of house wren and the swallow nest, how they're different. The swallows will be a little bit flatter. They're the ones at the bottom. You'll see the sparrows coming and the swallows coming and going. Their eggs are different. House wren likes to use sticks. You'll definitely hear the house wren. They're very chatty, very adorable. And both of these are okay in our book as far as using bluebird nests. Here are some of those beautiful blue eggs, usually 4 to 5, but we have seen up to 6 or 7. Occasionally they'll be a little bit paler. And I'll leave the slide up so we can see how they grow. In about 18 to 20 days is when we start to see them leaving the nest. Not super cute at first, but at the end, they are very cute. And I don't know if I mentioned this on another slide or not, but the adults will feed their young for up to 30 days. So they will continue to feed them after they leave the nest. We've actually seen young bluebird fledglings begging for food from adult cardinals and other species, and they'll just look at them and say, "What? I don't know what you want from me." So they really do have a lot of personality, and it's so much fun to watch them. And this is a fun time not to be opening your nest box, but just to be watching for the fledglings to come out when you hit that, 18 to 20 day mark from the first evidence of eggs in the nest. If you'd like to encourage additional broods in your nest box, you actually, it is recommended to remove the nest box. This encourages them to create a new nest and kind of start over. You want to make sure that all the babies have fledged, and you don't want to put the nest right at the bottom of the nest box. You're going to either throw it away or bring it somewhere far away so you discourage predators from getting there. Just a couple places to find some really good resources. North American Bluebird Society is awesome. They have so much information. It's a really cool group of people that are just very passionate about bluebirds. Cornell Lab of Ornithology. This is great for any kind of bird that you might have seen in your backyard or that you'd like to learn more about. They have the sounds, they have all sorts of pictures, a lot of great information. So you can find information here about the Eastern Bluebird as well as any other species that you're looking at. And Project Nest Watch, which I mentioned earlier, is a great place to become a citizen scientist and to log some of your data. Also on Nest Watch, they have some really interesting articles. For instance, I saw that it was the first recorded evidence of bluebird twins. And they also had an article about bluebird juveniles feeding some of their younger, actually helping their parents out, which I thought was really interesting. So definitely check out Nest Watch. And I think that was just about everything that I was going to mention about bluebirds. I know it's a lot. I'm going to share my slides as well as some of the other resources that we had. I saw before the webinar, somebody asked why bluebirds are not using the boxes in their house. And I would venture to say that potentially maybe you don't have the right kind of habitat in your backyard. You're welcome to send me a photo via email if you like, and I can give you some advice. But if your backyard is not appropriate for bluebirds, maybe you'd consider setting up nest boxes for some other native species. So I can try to give you some more one-on-one advice as far as that goes. But I always recommend if you don't have any activity, just move your boxes, move them somewhere else, see what happens. observe them frequently, and hopefully you'll have some kind of success. So Kyle, I think I see some, oh wait, I can find the chat now.
So people have sent me private messages with questions too. So if you'd like me just kind of feed you some questions in a few minutes, and maybe we'll take 5 minutes of questions, or if anybody needs to run out, and then we'll start with Tom. So first couple questions I have is, can I install a nest box on a lawn that gets mowed once a week? And we have a lot of robins in the yard. Will they chase away the bluebirds?
Yes, I think is okay as long as you're not using chemicals in your yard. The bluebirds prefer a meadow habitat. I think this is partially because it would encourage additional insect life in your yard. But I would say that once a week mowing is okay. You know, just see what happens. It might not be an option to turn your backyard into a meadow, so I say it's definitely worth a try. As far as feeding bluebirds, if you feel that perhaps you don't have enough insect life in your backyard, you can purchase some mealworm from a local pet store, and there are mealworm feeders that you can set up to encourage them. I also I'm just going to skip to another question because it kind of leads into this. I saw somebody asked about what types of shrubs would be ideal to plant for a bluebird. In the winter, they opt for berry producing shrubs. So things like holly, sumac, juniper, even like blueberry bushes or things that still might have some berries dried on the bush. Would be excellent food source for them as well as other native species. So I can send out a list of some recommended native shrubs that you can plant in your yard for the bluebirds. Heather asked if there is a problem if you only have one egg in the nest. I don't know if that's a problem. My next question for you would be, do you see them coming and going? Sometimes there could potentially be a delay. I would say that if you're still seeing the mommy and daddy there in and out of the box and potentially incubating the egg, I think that's okay. Potentially happen to them midway through mating or laying the egg. So I would say just keep watching. And if you're not seeing anybody coming and going for a week, then I would say might be abandoned the nest. I have heard of them laying their eggs and then waiting a little bit to actually incubate them until the weather warms up. So if they lay the eggs a bit too early in the season, they might not start incubating until a little bit later. So just be patient and watch for activity.
I have another question on, like, two questions on where to establish a bluebird box. One was asking if you can put it on the trunk of a tree if it is above 5 feet from the ground. And another was establishing a box in an area with a large amount of feral cats.
Feral cats are a tough one. They account for a huge number of songbird deaths. You can always install the box. It's just a matter of monitoring and seeing if there is activity from non-native species that you'll want to deter by removing the nest from the box, or B, predatory activity. So the cats could potentially get to, you can try to form a deterrent by way of some of those predator guards that I mentioned earlier. That might be a good way, making sure that there's no way that the cats can jump from close by to the tree, to the nest box. But as we all know, cats are very visual, so I would just keep watch. I think that's the best thing. If you install the bluebird box, you kind of become a steward of that bluebird family. So it's your duty to watch and help them as much as you can. And then as far as installing a bluebird box on a tree, sure, they will often naturally nest in trees. So I would say, again, install it, monitor it. Potentially that could invite raccoons or other predators, so you might want to keep watch over that. But like I said, that is their natural habitat, so theoretically that should work. We've seen the best success when the nest box is mounted on a pole in the middle of a meadow, but that doesn't mean that that's the only place that they'll nest. And hey, you might get some other creature, you know, a house wren, super cute. I would be just as happy to have a house wren. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention was that at the end of the season, either in the fall or very early spring of the next year, I would say in February sometime, you're going to want to remove all nesting material. And a good rule of thumb is if there's no cup, if the nest isn't formed in a cup shape, that means it's probably either a mouse or a flying squirrel. So don't stick your hand right in there because there could still be a creature in there. You're going to want to either use some kind of a tool or like take the box out and actually empty it for your own safety.
Okay. One more, I guess two more questions. One was if you have any recommendations on where to purchase a box.
Oh, yeah. Oh boy. I think Gardener's Supply. I'm going to send an email out after this webinar because I did actually have a hard time sourcing boxes for purchase, but I found one website. I think it was Gardener's Supply. I'll confirm that and send it out to everybody. And then we personally at Raritan Headwaters have a carpenter that has been making some really beautiful boxes. And I asked him prior to this webinar, and he did say that he'd be willing to, he's in Hunterdon County, to build boxes either for pickup within Hunterdon County, or he could potentially deliver it if you're not too far from him. So I will send everybody both the website and that carpenter's information, so they can purchase a box if they like.
Okay, I'm going to do the last question, and then we'll switch over to Tom just to keep us on track. We're just going to send that email out with sort of materials that we're mentioning, and you can certainly follow up with her if you have any more questions. But last question, how far should the box be away from the house?
I would say if you have the space, 100 yards is good, but like I don't have that amount of space in my backyard, so I just put it as far as I could without getting into the tree line of my backyard. But the farther away from anything, the better. The more in the center of a field, the better. If you are someone that has a lot of space in your backyard and you'd like to put up multiple boxes, again, the rule of thumb is between 100 to 150 yards apart from each other to encourage two bluebird families. But otherwise, yeah, up to 100 yards. Personally, I like to be able to look out my window and see the box. I don't think I have the perfect habitat, but I've stuck it in a grassy area, like I said before, it gets into the tree line. And I just saw Barbara Berger suggested Tractor Supply Bluebird box, so you might check their website. Yeah, I'd be a little wary of Amazon. I would just want to make sure that the dimensions are correct and that they're not, you know, make sure you find out where the source is from, that they're not using any questionable materials or anything like that. But you could potentially find them on Amazon too.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
Passing presenter privileges to Tom, and thank you all so much so far. Got it, Tom?
Tom, you're still muted. Oh.
I don't have anything yet from you.
Okay, let me try again.
And I just,
Oh, were you getting it? Sorry, I'm resetting it. I'll get it over to you.
it's okay. I was trying to see if it was another tab, but nothing's come up yet.
Okay. I'm sending it over to you now.
It just came through.
Okay.
You seeing it?
No, did you click that button on the bottom?
The one with the dot?
The one with the square with the arrow pointing up? There we go. It's starting to come through.
Are you seeing?
Yep, it just started. There you go. That's just loading. Okay.
My name is Tom Shepphard. I'm the chief naturalist. I'm sorry, Kyle, you said something?
No, I said it looks good.
Okay. And I'm sounding okay?
Yep, you sound good.
Again, my name is Tom Shepphard. I'm the chief naturalist with the county parks. I've been doing for about 10 years because I've seen this as the animal of concern over the last years with Hunterdon County. Eastern coyotes have been around since the turn. When I was growing up, back in my younger ages, we had things running around called but these coyotes that we have now are a lot different coyotes out in the western parts of the country. They're bigger, they're doing things a bit differently than normally coyotes have done in other locations. Coyotes started coming back out in the 1940s, never endangered or threatened, much like the old movies. They had been vilified, but they were actually eradicated out of the East. And you can see through these slides their gradual return. A better how they do focus on the more undeveloped regions of the states. Coyotes pushed back on fox over the last few years. They reclaimed the meadows, the pasture lands, and people might remember about 10, 15 years ago, a lot more sightings of red foxes around the homes, reports of mange, and that's when the populations were truly reestablishing. We do have multiple different subspecies of coyote, and what I want to point out with this slide is you'll see that population 20 and 17 are the only two that really touch, 20 being the Eastern Coyote. It's not really showing a lot of genetic drift through other subspecies, and when you compare it to a lot of the canine in the North America, there's actually also a wolf that falls over that line, the timber wolf. Gray wolf split back in the 2013. Timber wolf actually shows its concentration around Algonquin, which is kind of like the Yellowstone of the states. Populations are down. Wolves and coyotes will take other cousins as mates, and that's why we had coy dogs and all initially, because the males will pioneer first back into the region. And when their populations were down, not only were they breeding with feral dogs, there was breeding between the wolves and the coyotes. There are some reports say that Eastern coyotes are about 25% with wolf genetics. And scientists to date still do not fully know what to make of the Eastern coyote because of the size difference and the behavioral differences that they are doing. Mentioned when they came back about 10, 15 years ago, there was sort of a little turf war between the red fox and the coyote. You do need to remember that red fox is not a true canine. It's in a different genus. So there is no crossbreeding between the two. The fox does know it would lose a fight with a coyote, so it does posture a little bit before moving away and letting the coyote take over the larger meadow pasture land that they were having their little turf war about. A partner for a while. They give birth a little bit later than foxes in March. 3 to 5 is sort of the standard. Within about 4 to 5 weeks, pups are learning and being taught how to be coyotes and are independent by the end of the fall. Coyotes don't hunt just because they're hungry. They hunt whenever they can find food resources because they will cache food. Kind of the same way when we go to the grocery store, we don't buy just enough food for a day. We buy for several days, a week or so, and put food away. It's this behavior that farmers and ranchers always use to villainize the coyote, because if they got into the chicken coop, the coyote's thinking is, I may not be hungry now, but I will catch all of these guys and put them away for later. The problem that ranchers and farmers did, however, is by hunting and coyotes, it actually gears the coyote to have larger families. So they only compounded the problem when they put bounties on the coyote, and it encouraged them to keep their populations high, and then that population is what has reestablished in the East. They will be gregarious, they will move in family units, but what's also happening in the eastern part of the country is the coyote is now actually staying together in packs sometimes. I know of one case out in Monmouth County where a pack formed of about 20 and was showing no fear around humans. That pack was actually in time destroyed. I know of 2 cases for Hunterdon where packs were attacking a sheep farm, and those packs as well were decided by the state to be removed. However, I do like the fact that coyotes are back. A single coyote has no problem taking a fawn or a small doe, but the pack unit can even take down the buck. So we actually now have the return of a predator over our largest prey animal as a means of controlling or helping to control the population. Deer populations, in my opinion, will never be down to what human tolerance wants. Most of these times, coyotes are moving around when humans are not. We actually refer to them as crepuscular animals. Animals that move in the twilights, the dawn and dusk hours. But like all canines, they are a perfect walker, meaning that their hind foot will land basically where the front print of foot landed. And if they are leaving prints, it's the hind print that you need to see. You notice on the fox, the hind print in the back pad is triangular. The coyote's print will actually normally be a circle, even though the print here shows a little bit of like a wing pattern to it. Unless in snow, it's not usually enough, the material is not usually soft enough to allow that to come in. Don't get caught up on the measurements, especially if it's in snow, because as the snow melts, the track will enlarge. There's also some variability in the size of the animals, juveniles as well. So size is somewhat relative. These were put here because, again, they were in the books to share the information. Both fox and coyote will put scat out in prominent locations as a means of helping to mark their territory. Scat will only tell you if it's coyote if it's about 3/4 inch, or what we often say is rounder than your pinky. You know it's canine predator because when they do feed, they are ingested from the prey some other material that is not digestible, and that will pass through the system and cause the scat to have sort of a tapered tip pattern to it. So again, it's a way of telling it. You need to be out at night. I do have recordings, but I did not include them. But basically, a wolf is the musician. Very clear pattern to it. Is the top singer as well as the top predator. Coyote has the desire to be the singer, but is still in need of some voice lessons. It's not as musical, a little bit harsher, but you tell that they're trying to have a musical pattern to it. The red fox, there is no musical pattern to it. It screeches and howls in just sort of a randomized pattern. Concerns with coyotes now that they're back, a lot also do parallel those that we were taught and learned in regards to the fox. There is the issue of mange, rabies that all get carried by the canines. They'll pick up distemper. They will also be the carriers of tapeworms and can spread that around in their fecal matter. There are a lot of small farms throughout the area. Domestic animals have lost the ability to sort of know how to defend themselves. Coyotes see these as easy targets. They don't recognize the interests of humans or the properties of humans. Them as an easy food source. My slides just locked up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just a second. Maybe it's gonna look. Now I see white.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, coyotes recognize our pets as potential food, as potential issues of threats with the dogs. Again, there's enough instinct alive in our dogs that they could try interaction with the coyotes if they posh it a little bit around the breeding times, or the dog is in a defense of what the dog has recognized as its territory if it's encountering the coyote. But the dogs, since they aren't really wild animals anymore, are not going to stand a chance if a coyote does trigger the encounter. Small dogs will be seen as prey as well as cats. I know of one case with cats where a population in a warehouse was adopted by the community, feeding it. After a while, the community saw that there were no cats disappearing. What had actually happened is took out all the cats and then started eating the cat food. So again, these are creatures who are not going to pass up left resources that they can take advantage of. Why are they moving so slow now?
If it's a problem, you do have your slides, so I could do it. You could just tell me.
Right, well, again, I'm not trying to get political with this slide. All I'm trying to say in this one is, or don't rely on just reading headlines. Read the full articles, because again, headlines are just about trying to catch people. Coyote on the Prowl was nothing more than an article on what to do if you see a coyote. The coyote confrontation was about a person who was eel fishing, and again, he was leaving at night, was walking out. He realized water's edge, turned around, and he saw a coyote crossing the trail. He reported it as the coyote stalking him. Coyotes do know what humans are, and they do want to avoid human contact. So the coyote was just waiting for the person to pass before crossing the open space of the trail. If you do have an encounter, and it's a single encounter, you actually want to show dominance sort of over the coyote. You are a bigger individual, so you do make noise in its direction. You can even throw things in its direction. Do not try to actually hit it, though. And after doing that, back away slowly. Basically, what you are telling the coyote is you're the dominant one here. You just don't want to have an interaction with it, and it will hopefully leave you alone. Please also do remember when you back away, don't turn around until the animal is out of eyesight. If it is a group of coyotes, okay, you do not approach it. You do not do anything that will threaten it. You make noise in its direction. If you can, or a vehicle or a building, yes, please step inside. But in the making of the noise, if there are other people around, call them to your attention, make them join you, and make a quote-unquote pack bigger than them if you can, or get more people around you. If push does come to shove and it does come in, you do want to try to control the muzzle. Its power is in the downward bite, so if you can get your hands around the muzzle, you should have the strength to keep it closed, because that's what will do the damage to you. They do make chemical sprays, kind of like what they do for mace for wild animals, but please be aware that they do have a high price to them. They do have a shelf life. And chances are, if you do see an encounter midday with a coyote, chances are it is probably an animal sick with rabies or the mange issue. Because again, healthy coyotes are avoiding human contact. Do things that will cause the coyote to investigate the areas you're using. Okay, we don't want to leave food out. We don't want to be leaving excess trash out. Hopefully, again, with being also bear country, people are in the habit of cleaning their garbage cans on occasion. So we're doing everything we can to remove the odors that would cause them to investigate our backyards, the areas that we're occupying. And again, when it comes to our pets, while they may be outside with us during the day, don't leave them outside. Don't feed them outside. It is said that a coyote with wind smelling or blowing in the right direction can actually sometimes smell odors over a mile away. And make your backyard uncomfortable for the coyote. It is a stalking predator. It wants to take advantage of places to hide, to get in close to what it's trying to investigate, to hunt. So prune vegetation up so that there's no ability for the coyote to seek shelter underneath that vegetation. Also, think about incorporating motion lights in the backyards around your barn, so that if the animal is moving around, they'll be illuminated. And again, it takes away their advantage. I actually know of one person who even tied into the system somehow, so that when the lights were triggered, it turned on a radio to make it actually interact as if people were around. Livestock or fences that you're trying to use to define your areas and keep out the coyotes, you can incorporate electronic elements into the fence. You can also adapt your existing fences to get up to the height needed to prevent coyotes from jumping over. There are bounders capable of jumping about 5 feet or so. And what you can do is add extensions onto pre-existing fence that reach outwards and reach into the arc of coyote is trying to jump over and then obstruct them with actually a smaller height of a fence. Feeding barns for animals outside, sheep, goats, as well as horses and other things. Again, here, the reason is the barn will trap the odors from what you're feeding. It will also offer you the floor to clean up any mess and spills that might occur, and therefore limit the amount of odor that might be traveling that the coyote might come and investigate. You also need to think about going down with your fences. Okay, most of them go about 10, 15, 18 inches, and the reason you need to think about going down is, like all dogs, coyotes do dig. And that depth has to do with their chest cavity. Coyotes will investigate depth up to the equivalent of the size of their chest cavity to dig under. So you need to obstruct the full measurement. So if they go down 3-4 inches and find that whatever's obstructing them disappears, they will then continue and dig down further. But if you deny the whole element of the chest cavity, they will move on and try to either seek elsewhere or give up on the region and move on away from the area. The two main strategies are creating a trough and layering a wire mesh in an L shape, or doing the rebar every 6 inches. Is to talk about guard animals. Out west in drier communities, the burro, the mule, is still a feisty enough animal that they will fend off the coyote. It's bigger than the coyote. So again, the single coyote will sort of leave the herd alone and the animals adapt to that guard animal. What's more popular in Hunterdon seems to be the incorporation of the llama. And if you've ever seen the old Jack Hanna documentaries, you know that the llama can be a feisty animal, spitting accurately up to about 15 feet. We have to adapt to the coyote. It is here in numbers now. The breed higher, and they've already, the game is to be played. And again, unlike humans, understand the concept of property. They're not going to be walking into 15 acres to live on. They are around an existing advantage of what humans are offering. So in order to coexist with, we need to sort of deny the areas that we want them by making sure that they are not going to areas that they are going to be interested in pursuing and investigating. Okay. And that's actually the last slide. So I'm going to try to give it back to you.
I can take it if you want.
Questions and see. Go ahead.
Okay, no, that's fine. You can just leave it like this, or I can take it back. Do we have any questions for Tom? You can type them in. I had gotten one question actually about foxes while you were talking about foxes.
Okay.
Should be able to take that.
Sure.
So Sharon said that she has baby foxes come out last Thursday and that they're all over her patio. She was wondering if you know how long they would stay and what she can do to like be in harmony with them.
You know, foxes usually give birth actually towards the end of February. Again, about 3 to 4 is the common. Again, with the coyote's presence, they're living in a much thinner line between humans and coyotes, so encounters with them have been up. Again, all the strategies of sort of coexisting with coyotes work with fox. So again, no food outside that might be desires of the fox to investigate. Keeping under control in sight so that there's no encounters between the fox and the pets as well. Again, they are a crepuscular animal, so they're most active in the dawn and twilight hours. But when they do have young, they try to actively feed all the time because there's the extra mouths to feed. So again, giving them background of on how big of an area you have. They're out seeking nuts, insects, small rodents. So they're the thing you're looking for. So nothing, again, by keeping your food and your waste under control, you're also that way either.
Okay, I got one more question for you, and then if nobody has anything else, perhaps we'll be done. Are there any maps or data showing that deer populations are better controlled in areas where coyote populations are higher?
I've not seen any direct report on that. Again, why I make the statement is I have seen many reports of coyote groups taking down deer. And again, since they do have that ability, it gives us a better controlled ecosystem. But because many humans and with human lawns, ideal deer habitat, there's always, in my opinion, going to be an overpopulation of deer for New Jersey because they prefer open space with a little bit of woodlands around them, which is what most people prefer around their homes. It's just a matter of right now, again, their populations are still growing. I've seen one estimate where it stated that there are between 12 and 14,000 coyotes in the whole entirety of the state. But only about 350 are ever taken with hunting season. So their numbers will continue to grow, in my opinion. And in time, perhaps we'll start seeing some type of more noticeable effect on deer population.
All right, last question, and then we'll close up. Should we report coyote sightings if they are seen during the day, and who should you report them to?
The only thing I would mention about in regards to reporting sightings is if the coyote is acting out of character. If the coyote is seen during the day and runs away from the shelter, that's a normal coyote. If the coyote is just sitting in the field doing nothing but watching you or moving a bit closer to you, then I would say, yes, that's a coyote to potentially report because there are characteristics that might be shown of a coyote under the effects of rabies. Activity during the heart of the day is not the main time that we should be seeing coyote activity.
All right. Well, thank you again, Tom. I think that's the end of our presentation for today and our questions. If you have anything else, we'll send a follow-up email with the materials that Lauren and Tom did want to share. Thank you again so much for coming. Just again, a quick plug, if you'd like to come next week, we hope you do join us for our one on invasive species, as well as on May 6th about organic landscaping and creative native area in your yard. And then again, you can visit our website to take the River Friendly Resident questionnaire and look at our resources that we'll email today, and eventually we'll have today's presentation up there as well. So that's it. I guess just thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you again next week or soon.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Lauren.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
Here.
Thanks, Tom. Kyle, should I sign up for the upcoming webinars to get the link? Is that easier for you? Like if I
No,
register.